from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdés, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdés.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdés, Valdés with an S, at Rich Valdés on all of the social media. Welcome to the Thursday night edition of the program. We are live and national, and I want to thank you for being here. It's an honor and a blessing to be with you guys tonight. Here's the phone number if you want to join me, 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdés. And the cover of the New York Post today, fantastic. Listen to this. Lapdog Laptop Media falls for another Dem mudslinging Trump hoax. Dirty clicks. The Epstein email hoax is just that. Fake, phony, and fraud. Now, we talked about this last night, right, in reaction to the news of the day. But interestingly, what a lot of people thought was that this thing was going to grow some legs. It didn't. Really, they're rehashing things. In fact, I guess as people started to do more research into what's going on, they're finding out that this is just more smear. And again, this is not, I like Trump, so I'm trying to defend him. I mean, that's partially true. But this is more over just the truth, right? This is just the truth. These things are all known, right? This woman, Giuffre, she's on the record saying that Trump was a complete gentleman and that he did nothing wrong. So where does this come from? Well, I'll tell you, this obsession, it comes from I'm going to call him a writer, a guy named Michael Wolff. This guy, Wolff, he was going back and forth with Jeffrey Epstein not that long before Epstein died, saying, hey, look, if you have any information about Trump, blah, 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 I'm paraphrasing, but he basically told him, you can either A, kind of leverage this information to get him to leave you alone or to work with you, or B, you can get him on the hook to owe you because he'll be in debt to you if it looks like he's going to win the election. This guy, Michael Wolff, who I've never met, but I've only seen his work, right? He writes books literally slandering, maligning President Trump, and I guess calling it a fiction or trying to support it with, sources that are sketchy. This is his whole angle, is to take down Trump. And I got to say, anybody whose whole angle is to destroy someone else, you've always got to ask yourself questions about those people and say, why is your entire shtick about beating up this other person, right? So, I mean, I get on the radio. It's okay to beat people up from time to time, right? But my whole shtick is not about Biden or about anything, right? My whole shtick is it's pro-liberty. It's about defending what this country was started on, those ideas that came from men who were informed by the Enlightenment. It's about trying our best, all of us, especially me, right? Like Paul said, I am a sinner. And embracing a Christian biblical worldview, which for many people who are not in tune with their faith, can be a moral worldview. But I think a biblical one is important because you need something to lean on to say, hey, look, this is how I'm going to view life. This is how I'm going to see the world. And it helps in many areas. It doesn't make any of us perfect, right? That's not the goal. The goal is to be better than you were yesterday. So that you today lack integrity, tomorrow you have a little bit more. You're always trying to do the right thing when nobody's looking. That type of thing, right? It doesn't matter if your boss is going to give you overtime or not. You want to do the right thing. You want to get the job done. You want to do the best you can. It's about your reputation. It's about your name. It's about doing what's right, right? Some verses in the Bible say, everything you do it as if you're doing it to the Lord. And all good advice. Now, I'm the first one to say I don't always do that, right? There's times I get fed up. Driving is probably the first place. If you want to criticize me, put me in a car. I lose it quick. And I'm like, I hate driving. I should have taken a Uber. I should have done this. I should have done that. Right? We all have areas that we need to work on. But my point is, we want to embrace a view of this life, a view of this world that is not one that we make up as we go along. It's not one that's piecemeal. It's not one that's motivated like, I'm going to, dare I say, Michael Wolff's is. He doesn't like Trump, so now that's his thing. His big thing is to just go after Trump every time, anytime, and every time. And this, to me, is, sad. It's sad for Michael Wolff. And it's unnecessary for El Trumpito. But ultimately, this whole thing is a farce. The media tried to make it look like something bigger than it was, as if Trump was really involved in something. And it's falling apart. It was a fantastic blunder on behalf of them. And when I say the media, I mean the left within the media. Whenever that happens, I finished a show, midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. I'll check some of the social media if I'm not going right to sleep. And I'll see right away some comments of people saying, doesn't this guy Valdés know that he is the media? Somebody needs to tell him. Listen, I realize that talk radio is part of the media. I do. But I don't consider myself part of the media that's like the CNN part of the media, right? Cable news and whatnot. There are some outliers out there, right? Fox News has always been a standalone. Whether you like them or don't like them, they've always been a standout. They were never like CNN. They were never like the other ones. They were always drastically different. Then came Newsmax most recently. And guess what? They're very different too. Right? So they all have their own space. But you'll hear things that you'll disagree with on Newsmax ideologically. You'll hear things that are cloaked solely in the facts because they do a really good job reporting news, in my opinion. So I say all of this to say how you can get so many in these big legacy newspapers like the Gray Lady, the New York Times, and others, to jump on to this Michael Wolff stuff and because some Democrats and the oversight committee send them a few cherry-picked emails to try and make a stink the day that the government's open, and nobody says, hold on, let me get my spidey senses. Yesterday, for some different work, I interviewed I think it was deputy editor of the DC bureau chief for the New York Post about the Epstein stuff. And I asked him, what's your political calculation on why this is happening? And his answer was, very genuine. I think he said, Democrats don't have a lot of strength right now. So they're pretty much going to grab anything they can that they think will put Trump in poor light to move forward. And, of course, that makes sense. That's an astute political calculation. And then, of course, they do what any good Marxist would do. They try to get people, principally the victims of Jeffrey Epstein, to feel slighted. They say, can you believe this is happening? These people are, Donald Trump is sitting in the White House while you're trying to make it look like there are more people. There's a reality here that it's never lost on me. Trump's never been accused of any of these things. Trump's not involved with any of these things. Trump is the president. He didn't do these things. I can't for the life of me figure out why they're trying to keep or hold him accountable for things that someone else did. In particular, a guy that was held accountable. He went to jail. He died in jail. Now, okay, if you want to make fun of me for believing that he's dead, okay, you can. I can't prove the guy's alive like so many of my good friends from the QAnon world. So I go with the story that I've seen that seems the most legitimate. There's no Epstein, right? He's with Elvis. He's with Tupac. He's with JFK Jr. They're all together, hiding, pretending they're dead, whatever. That's the bottom line. And it just, it's fascinating to me to see how these things evolve. Anyway, I want to get into a little geopolitical stuff because I've had it up to here. You can't see me, but I've got my hand like a foot above my head with this Epstein email hoax. And things are continuing to move from President Trump's trip to Asia a couple of weeks ago. Things continue to happen with drug boats. The 20th boat today was exploded, I'm going to say, by the United States government. Good for them, taking on these drug boats. And who better to catch up on the geopolitical scene than our friend Gordon Chang? He's going to join us straight ahead. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdés.
I want to listen to you, Rich, all the time.
America at Night with Rich Valdés.
A lot of people looking on and wondering whether this means some kind of confrontation down the line. But we know that the undercurrents of a lot of what we've been seeing is that Caracas does believe that Washington is seeking regime change, something we've even heard from President Trump in sort of nuanced terms. But what are your sources telling you?
Yeah, we reported back in September and since then that there are some within the Trump administration who are pushing a strategy to effectively conduct strikes inside Venezuela with the idea of pushing Nicolas Maduro, the president of Venezuela, out of power. That is still something some U.S. officials hope can be accomplished as part of this military buildup. At the same time, we also know that the Trump administration told Congress just a few days ago that it doesn't currently have the legal justification to target anything inside Venezuela or any other territory, even though they are potentially seeking an additional legal justification that would allow them to do so. So really some uncertainty, some ambiguity there. As you mentioned, Donald Trump has been noncommittal on this since the beginning, both speaking in very verbose terms, in terms of threatening Nicolas Maduro, but at the same time, not going all the way to commit to U.S. forces conducting some sort of a regime change strategy operation targeting him. So we're going to have to wait and see what ultimately happens. But again, there's really a lot of questions as to what all this U.S. firepower, a significant piece of the U.S. Navy, what it is doing there and why it's needed, which is, again, is stoking the questions about a potential regime change in Venezuela.
So we're talking about regime change in Venezuela. And listen, I'm the first one to call for it. I think it's extremely necessary. But there's a lot of moving parts here, right? Venezuela doesn't exist in a vacuum. They've got ties to Russia. They've got ties to China and other communist allies that they've got throughout the world. So I want to talk about this, the importance of Venezuela to our enemies, as well as the importance of Venezuela to the United States, with one of my favorite geopolitical experts, Gordon Chang. Now, Gordon Chang has been with us many times. He's terrific. He's the author of Plan Red, China's Project to Destroy America. Gordon Chang, welcome, sir.
Thank you so much, Rich.
Good to hear your voice, brother. So talk to me. I know there's been a lot of, it seems like posturing with the United States bringing all this manpower and firepower out there to Venezuela, but something tells me that it's not just bluster. It's not just a bluff on behalf of President Trump. It's a genuine hope that we'll get to use them. I don't know if I'm right or if I'm wrong. What are your thoughts?
Well, certainly we've already used force. We've destroyed about 20 drug boats in both the Caribbean and in the Eastern Pacific, and those were coming from Venezuela and Colombia. And so that's been controversial, but I believe the U.S. does have justification to do that because these were heading towards the United States, and we have a right of self-defense. Whether the United States is going to strike Venezuela, I suspect that we probably will, largely because we wouldn't be marshaling all of those military assets so close to Venezuela's shores and not do anything. So I suspect something will happen, but right now there is this period of uncertainty. But clearly the United States wants to get rid of Maduro, and indeed we should. He's the head of the cartel of the Suns that sends drugs to our shores, and we have a right to stop it.
Gordon Chang, let's talk about that because I agree that it's a significant problem for the United States. I saw a headline, just to backtrack a little bit, a day or two ago, might have been yesterday morning, that said China agrees to help curtail fentanyl precursors. And I had to laugh, and it's not a laughing matter, but I had to laugh to think, how do they commit to, they're the ones sending it. It's not like it's a criminal element within China. it is the CCP that's sending these things to destabilize our country. And now they're saying, all right, we agree to doing it. It sounds like it's they're speaking out of both sides of their mouth.
Well, certainly. The fentanyl producers couldn't operate in China's total surveillance state without the regime knowing and approving what they're doing. But
Right.
we also know that some of the fentanyl producers are state-owned. The central government provides subsidies for the production of fentanyl. Chinese diplomats give cover to the gangs. Every container that leaves China is inspected by officials. The Chinese fentanyl producers, they launder their proceeds through the Chinese state banking system. And China's own TikTok promotes illicit drug use in the U.S. So this is a project of the Communist Party. And by the way, it was great that Kash Patel, FBI director, came back and announced this agreement not to produce fentanyl.
Yeah.
But we got to remember that the same Xi Jinping made the same promise to President Obama in 2016,
Right.
to President
That's my
Trump
thinking.
in 2018, to President Biden in 2023. So, this is the fourth time he's made that same promise.
Yeah, I don't feel like they're very trustworthy, Gordon Chang. So I'm wondering, how do we, I guess, hit them without hitting them? Kind of like doing what they do. Their death by 1,000 cuts type of strategy. Is it tariffs? Is it, I guess, destabilizing some of their allies in the world, like Venezuela? What's the play that you see?
Well, first of all, President Trump did impose an additional 20% tariff on China for fentanyl,
Sure.
and he reduced it to 10%. Well, I think that he should increase it to 30%, 40%, 50% until they actually stop sending fentanyl. And the other thing we got to remember is that fentanyl is one thing, but Chinese producers have been changing the formulas and coming up with new opioids to kill Americans. So it's not just fentanyl. There's also what we know, the netazines, which are even more deadly. And, of course, the Washington Post reporting from November 8th of this month that China's flooding Southeast Asia with fentanyl, with precursors for methamphetamines. So this is part of a coordinated plan to kill a lot of people who are not Chinese.
Very interesting stuff, Gordon Chang. So I want to talk, I guess, more specifically about China, because if our efforts in Venezuela prevail and we're able to do that, I want you to give us a little bit of what your outlook is, your take on how much of a blow that is to China losing this connection in the Caribbean and South America.
Well, Venezuela is one of, I guess, the two most important of China's proxies in this region, the other being Cuba. And Cuba, Venezuela, China, Russia, Iran, they have all very thick ties keeping them together. And we saw, for instance, the Venezuelan minister in China, right, for this trade deal. So,
Gordon, I don't want to cut you off,
thick.
but the music is going to play over you, and I want them to hear what you're talking about. So we'll pick up with what you're telling me about the minister. Amigos, we're coming right back with Gordon Chang. He's the author of Plan Red, China's Project to Destroy America. Follow him on Twitter and all the other social media at Gordon G. Chang, at Gordon G. Chang. Keep it locked right here. We're coming right back and continuing our conversation with Gordon Chang and me, Rich Valdés. Don't go anywhere.
The best guests, the best opinions. This is America at Night with Rich Valdés.
Daily Caller reports a U.S. nuclear bomber fleet shares a fence with a trailer park linked to Chinese intelligence. Here it is. So it's one thing for a Chinese couple to buy a trailer park. Here it is. This is thanks to Google Image. It is another thing for them to go to great lengths to hide who they are, including using multiple shell companies to conceal their identities. Why is this all important? Because they bought a trailer park in the middle of Missouri, no disrespect to Missouri. It's at the foot of the runway. where America's largest fleet of B-2 bombers take off. So you can see on the map there, the B-2s are just on the other side of those trees. So here is the map. The trailer park is right behind the runway, less than a mile away. So in the event of war, our B-2 bombers would be taking off over Chinese-owned land. It's even more alarming when you factor in that the shell companies trace back to a convicted fraudster with alleged ties to the Chinese Communist Party. This is happening in Republican Congressman Mark Alford's district in the state of Missouri. As I said, no disrespect to Missouri. I don't think you buy a trailer park near Whitman Air Force Base in Missouri as an investment when you're sitting in Beijing going, you know, honey, what could we invest in? Oh, I know. Let's find a trailer park.
And get a lot of double wides.
Right.
I don't think they're interested in that, Leland. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, the Whiteman Air Force Base is slap dab in the middle of our district, home of the B-2 stealth bomber, soon to be home of the B-21 Raider, which is coming in the not-too-distant future. And it's going to exponentially increase the size of
the influence that the Chinese have in their intelligence gathering. Now, I want to come back to, you just heard about that, right? This is yet another example of the Chinese buying property near military installations in the United States. Last year, it was the quote-unquote weather balloon that flew all over the country taking pictures of everything. We've had farmland that's been sold. Now we have this. Now, before we get into that and get reaction from our guest, Gordon Chang, the author of many books, not the least of which is The Great U.S.-China Tech War, The Coming Collapse of China, as well as Plan Red, China's Project to Destroy America. I want to get some reaction from Gordon Chang on the last point that I'd asked him, where he was commenting on what the minister had to say. Gordon Chang.
Yeah, the deputy foreign trade minister of Venezuela was in China recently when they announced a free trade agreement which would cover 400 tariff codes, in other words, 400 categories of products. Now, Venezuela basically sells just petroleum and petroleum-based products to China. What this would do is it would allow China's super efficient factories to completely decimate Venezuela's industry as little as it exists, which would make Venezuela even more dependent on China, which would mean it become even more of a proxy. And of course, Venezuela now is our adversary. So this puts China into direct conflict with the United States.
And this is, I think, a very, very big deal because it's, I feel like we're always in direct conflict and we always figure out a way to work around it. And President Trump's great at making deals and trying to push back financially. But ultimately, especially if we bring it back to the report that we just heard with respect to the Chinese buying property, next to or adjacent to military installations, it seems to me like we've got to draw a line in the sand. And I think we've had some legislation and there's been some local ordinances that say you need to be an American to buy these things. But I feel like it's not enough when we're finding that there's now trailer parks as well as farmland. And what else, Gordon Chang?
Yeah, we should force divestiture by Chinese nationals of American land. No American can own a square inch of land in China. So why do we allow the Chinese to own hundreds of thousands of square miles of land in our country? This is just a basic issue of reciprocity. But also this whole thing about the trailer park just shows that China could destroy a good portion of America's military assets even before a war starts in East Asia. The war in East Asia, by the way, Rich, it probably starts on American soil. That trailer park and other locations across our country.
Wow. Now, do you think, given their unrestricted warfare strategy, which is this, I call it death by 1,000 cuts, do you think that they would resort to hot war tactics if they're doing so well with fentanyl and TikTok and gain of function and all the rest of the things they've been doing to us?
Well, if they were planning to go to war in Asia, they would need something to hit us right away. So it wouldn't be just the issue of killing Americans over decades. It would be actually killing Americans on one night. And we could probably wake up to find very little of our modern infrastructure actually working, because the Chinese will take it down with cyber attacks. They'll take it down with kinetic attacks. They'll be starting wildfires, poisoning reservoirs, taking down power lines, spreading disease. You name it, they probably have got the capability in place. We know that they've got sleeper cells almost everywhere. We know that they've got these secret police stations. There was that secret Chinese biological weapons lab that was discovered in December 2022. So they have the capability to kill a large number of Americans in a very short period of time. Whether they'll do it or not, that's a different issue, but they've got the capability to do it.
Well, I feel like, and again, this might be my own naivete, Gordon Chang, but I feel like should that happen, I think the United States is equally as equipped to respond, and perhaps even more viciously, if you will. Do you think that's enough of a deterrent?
I don't think so, because what are we going to do? We don't have the capabilities to do what the Chinese will do in our country. We don't have the capabilities to do that in China. So are we going to launch missiles at China? Probably not. So this is asymmetric warfare. And we also have a military that doesn't have a sense of, and political system too, that doesn't have a sense of urgency and hasn't thought through some of these really critical issues. So I think we're going to be caught completely flat-footed, just as we were caught flat-footed by Osama bin Laden. I mean, he was very clear what he was saying about how he was going to attack America. And we just absolutely refused to listen. We refused to listen. And because of that, we lost 2,977 Americans on one single day.
Man, Gordon Chang, you paint a very bleak picture. I'm going to encourage everybody to get the book, Plan Red, China's Project to Destroy America. Gordon Chang, what's your recommendation? Beef up the offense strategy towards China. What else?
Well, the President of the United States, I believe, has an obligation to talk to the American people about how China is preparing for war, about how China is preparing to kill Americans, and how the United States needs to prepare to defend itself. We have this peacetime mentality, but I think the President needs to talk to Americans before something catastrophic occurs.
All right. Well, I consider myself warned. Gordon Chang, I want to thank you for being here and scaring the blank out of me. And I guess we really can't be too scared, right? We just got to be prepared and be a step ahead. Folks, the book is Plan Red, China's Project to Destroy America. The voice, Gordon Chang. Find him at Gordon G. Chang on Twitter. Gordon Chang, thank you so much for being here. My best to Lydia. God bless you, sir.
Well, God bless you, Rich, and thank you so much.
My pleasure. And amigos, your thoughts, your calls, your reactions, and everything else that's going on in America at night, straight ahead.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdés. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdés with an S. Now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdés with an S.
All right, amigos, to the phones we go, like good old Larry King used to say. After the guest leaves, we go to the phones. It's like voices. Clifton, Virginia. Boise, Idaho. Let's check in with Doug, WMAL, Clifton, Virginia. Go right ahead, Doug.
Well, Rich, thanks for doing all the great things you do. And Gordon Chang was amazing as usual. So one thing I would add, besides, he is terrific. He's been for years. Chinese are not only buying land in the United States, they're also buying land in a similar way in Canada. You can Google that really fast.
Yeah.
And if you're thinking that some of these threats that Gordon Chang is talking about is hyperbole and not really possible, you just have to look back earlier this summer with what happened between Israel and Iran. Many of the missiles that were fired by Israelis at the Iranian sites actually were from sites the Israelis had previously embedded in Iran. And that was the first thing I thought of when I saw that some of those sites were destroyed, which allowed our planes to come in, that were destroyed from sites within Iran. I said, oh, my goodness, that's exactly what the Chinese can do to us in this country, because they already have property throughout the United States.
Yeah. Both points well taken. Doug, a couple of years ago, and by a couple, my ADHD, it could be like 7, it could be like 3. But the point, right? But the point is, there was all the Chinese companies are tools of the Chinese government, and there was a port management company that was trying to take over several ports in Puerto Rico to manage ports and to run a water park. And it sounded so nice on the outside, but I did a little research on this stuff, and I saw that they do this in other parts of the world. And as you've seen in the South China Sea, they have these little micro islands that they've built, which are nothing short of military bases, right? And that's what they do. And they say port management, it's a water park, it's like Disney on the water, all lies. What they do is they collect, to do reconnaissance, they collect intelligence, and they basically have a military presence while they're parading around as port management. And this is what they were doing in the Panama Canal, which is why Trump and Secretary Rubio took a very tough posture on them and needed to do that. So people, I think they lose sight of this stuff because Trump is great at marketing and, Gulf of America, we're going to call it the Gulf. We're going to, we're taking back the Panama Canal. All of those things are great, and I think people get angry. Some people laugh. But the reality is these are really actually very strategic objectives because the Chinese really are on this quest for world domination. And I think sometimes too many Americans don't take it seriously, Doug.
Well, the thing is, we've been very lucky that we're a very large country, and so we kind of think we're not vulnerable to these type of threats. But the point is, China is flexing their muscles, and Gordon Chang, actually, it's because of him that I learned about those islands in part of the ocean. But you know what? They're not just taking over Venezuela. I've got a friend from Bolivia. They're doing the same thing in Bolivia in terms of undercutting private businesses, putting them out of business, taking over, bribing leaders of those countries. And one by one, they are going to make our lives difficult if we let them.
Yeah, Doug, the old saying about communism and socialism it's true today as it was always. It sounds good on paper, but it gets very difficult when you run out of spending other people's money. And that's what they're doing. They've run out of other people's money, so they're going to different countries to do what they do in their quest for world domination, this hegemonic plan they have. Doug, thank you for the conversation. I appreciate it. Shout out to everybody in WMAL country. I'm going to take a pause right here. We're going to come back with the rest of your calls and more. 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdés.
Look at Rich Valdés. He's now a radio host, and he's a great radio host.
America at Night with Rich Valdés.
Prosecutors said that this is a case of fraud and betrayal. They expect this trial to last anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks. There are 19 indictments against the couple that span more than a decade. The jury is made up of 10 women and 2 men, which is very interesting. It got off to a delay, or it got off to a later start than anticipated. And immediately after opening statements, they started to call witnesses. Linda's son held senior posts in New York state government under both Governor Andrew Cuomo and Governor Kathy Hochul, including a role as deputy chief of staff. So very high up positions. Her husband, Chris Hu, had several businesses in Queens. He was taking copious notes throughout opening statements. The son is accused of using her government role and her relationships with Chinese government officials to steer key state decisions and government contracts in ways that benefited the Chinese government, as well as her husband and their associates. During the COVID pandemic, for example, she is accused of directing the state to buy PPE from vendors tied to their family. The defense says that she may have just made a few administrative mistakes along the way, buying masks from people that they knew when, meanwhile, she was just trying to, quote unquote, do her job. She allegedly also halted meeting requests between the governor's office and Taiwanese officials. Sun is also accused of violating the Foreign Agents Registration Act, along with visa fraud, alien smuggling, and money laundering. Her husband, Nicole, charged with money laundering, conspiracy to commit bank fraud, and in a later indictment, tax evasion. Prosecutors say that the money and the gifts that they received were just massive, totaling millions of dollars in cash.
Yeah, so
that is the latest. That happened yesterday in New York. These are people that work for the New York State government, as you heard, caught red-handed, doing their little fraud scheme there, likely working for the Chinese, but putting money in their pocket all along. Oh, wow, what's wrong with buying masks from people I knew? Oh, shoot, I work for the government. That's what's wrong with it. The amount of fraud that went on with this COVID scam was really just massive. I remember covering stuff back then in 2020 about these companies. There was one that was called like Happy Face Productions or something, and they got millions, like $100 million in loans, PPP loans, and then bought a bunch of stuff, took a bunch of stuff, didn't pay back what they borrowed. Really just egregious stuff. Anyway, you heard what's going on. Gordon Chang brought us up to speed. You've heard this report about the spying, the espionage, the money laundering. It's all happening. It's all here. What do we do? Well, I think the first step is that we have to know what's going on and not bury our heads in the sand like ostriches. The second thing we've got to do is go to the calls. 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdés. We're talking about China. We're talking about the Epstein files. Let's go to Paul, Boise, Idaho, streaming the show tonight. Paul, go for it, my man.
Thanks for taking my call, Rich.
Of course.
I find Gordon Chang just a bevy of knowledge when it comes to China and Indo-Pacific. There's something that's been on my mind for a while, and it has to do with AEI. But I think there should be penalties, enhanced penalties, extreme enhanced penalties, if you use that against the commander-in-chief.
Now you're talking about artificial intelligence or the think tank?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's right to be used against him, and nobody's mentioned it. And I just had to say it because I've been thinking about it for over a year. Yeah.
Well, listen, no question. I scroll through social media, Twitter, Instagram, Truth Social, and I see, a lot of use of AI. A lot of it's funny. Some of it's a little crazy, but most of it is funny. And I think it falls in the world of free speech. And a while back, we had a gentleman that was locked up for a meme, right? A joke that I used to tell all the time, and he made a meme about it. And I think he said, Republicans vote today, Democrats vote tomorrow, which is what I used to do every election day. Literally, I used to put that on my Facebook every year and just be like, hey, if you're a Democrat, election day's tomorrow. Republicans, get out there today. And he went to jail for that. And it was crazy that actually happened, but it did. And we have to, I think, vigorously defend free speech, because if we don't, we'll lose it. And I don't want to turn into the UK. So I don't know. I think you're right that we might need some guardrails or safeguards on AI use, but we can't hold back free speech while we're doing that. Paul, thank you for the call, my brother. Godspeed to you, my man. Shout out to everybody in Boise, Idaho. That's Blaine Holt country, by the way. And amigos, we're going to continue this conversation with many of you straight ahead. Others of you, this is the end of the road. Hasta la próxima. Take care. Good night, and God bless you, America. I'm Rich Valdés.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdés, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdés.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdés, Valdés with an S, at Rich Valdés on all of the social media. Welcome to the Thursday night edition of the program. Happy to be here with you. It's a blessing, an honor, a privilege, and our phone number, if you want to join me, 833-482-5337, 833-4Valdés. We are 7 minutes past the top of the hour, and of course, looking forward to some of your calls in a little bit. But we're going to get into a number of things. We had some conversation about China. I want to talk about fentanyl. I want to talk about the crazy immigration busts that have been going on. And again, criminal busts. These aren't just visa overstays and whatnot. You're talking about sex predators and whatnot. I briefly mentioned it yesterday. I want to get into it, a little bit deeper today because I think it's important that we do that. And I also want to talk about the Epstein email hoax. Yep. The Epstein email hoax is yet again rearing its ugly head, this time at the behest of Michael Wolff, apparently. He is a writer that has been very anti-Trump. It seems like he's Trump-obsessed, to be honest with you. And who is he conspiring with? A dead pedophile trafficker that doesn't seem to go away, Jeffrey Epstein. And these two guys were plotting through email a while back, and one asking the other, hey, did you see him? Hey, do you have leverage on him? This and that. Wolff telling Epstein, listen, if you've got some leverage, either you use it now and you make sure he doesn't win, but if it looks like he's going to win, then you can go ahead and hold on to that and help him, so that he is indebted to you. I mean, this is the level that these guys are on. Yesterday we heard that President Trump told Epstein to leave Mar-a-Lago. It's an older story. We've heard it before, but we heard it again with those emails. And this woman, Virginia Giuffre, seemingly corroborating that when she says that, he was told to leave and they were told to stop recruiting there and whatnot. So the stories all seem to match up with Trump not being there, Trump not knowing anything, not knowing anything, but he knew Epstein was a douche, that he knew, but he wasn't involved in anything. And they obscured this person's name, Virginia Giuffre, likely because she's on the record saying Trump didn't do anything, right? In her sworn testimony, under oath. So what do? They take out her name to make it seem like it's something worse than it is. Kind of like, I think it's Jimmy Kimmel, the late night people that I know many of you think is not funny, but I think he's funny sometimes. And when I've watched him, I remember years ago I watched him, and he has a segment he calls Unnecessary Censorship. I think it's him. Maybe it's Jimmy Fallon. I might be doing it wrong. Yeah, it's Jimmy Fallon. And Jimmy Fallon, he does this segment, and it's like, he'll say, what the heck is wrong with you? But they'll have the producers bleep out heck. So it'll be like, what the blank is wrong with you? And you'll think he said something, more egregious. But in fact, it wasn't. And it's unnecessary censorship. That reminded me of what they did here, the Democrats, by, this woman is dead, by the way. She died by suicide, as you all know. And if she's not alive, why on earth are we blocking her name? And if we know her name and she's on the record saying Trump didn't do anything and he was a gentleman, why are we blocking her name? Well, the answer is clear. They're playing games. And even the CNN media, Wolf Blitzer, calling out Jasmine Crockett. Jasmine Crockett was on with Wolf Blitzer on CNN, trying to make it seem again like this is something other than it is. And they start fact-checking her right there, and I loved it. Listen to this.
She wrote a book, as you know, and she did not accuse him of any wrongdoing. What do you make of that, and can you confirm that?
Yeah, I don't know.
obviously it's redacted who the victim is, so I won't necessarily take the Republicans' word on who it is that's redacted. And I don't know why they would necessarily redact someone's name who is deceased at this point.
The Democrats did that, though. The Democrats redacted.
No. I understand,
Okay,
but I'm just saying, like, our biggest concern is to actually make sure that we are protecting victims.
Our biggest concern is to protect the victim. The victim is dead, ma'am. You didn't protect her. Unbelievable. And, you know, again, I want to reiterate, when the friendly media, right, the people that like Jasmine Crockett, the folks at MSNBC, CNN, these are the people that are, you know, I think they're in her corner. I would pretty much say if Jasmine Crockett did an interview on Fox News, maybe the newsroom, maybe the producers, maybe the rest of the employees there, but I doubt many of the hosts and I doubt many of the viewers are in favor of policies that Jasmine Crockett supports. And I think I feel pretty confident in that prediction. I would suspect that the opposite is true. With CNN, I'm pretty sure that many of the hosts on these panels that she's frequently on would agree with her policies. And when they're calling you out and fact-checking you on the spot, saying, but hold on a second, these are the Democrats doing this. Hello? It's because they've had enough. And they're like, come on. You know, we were born last night, at night, not last night. And she's just going a tad too far, in my opinion. And this is lately what the Democrats do. They go too far, right? It was like, hey, let's legalize same-sex marriage. Love trumps hate. Equal signs were all over the place, right? It was about like 9 years ago or something like that. Okay, it happened. Love trumps hate. Love trumps hate. Obama lights up the rainbow flag colors, the LGBTQ flag colors. He lights it up on the White House, so the White House looks like a big gay flag. That was, the monumental move of the Obama administration. Okay, super. Thank you, sir. Now, enter Joe Biden. We've got to go further. Where do we go? Well, your little boy can be your little girl. How dare you? We will put you in jail if you don't let your little boy become a girl. It's gender affirming, don't you know? Unbelievable the way that they have changed the narrative, moved the goalposts, and God bless everybody that's involved in the culture war. There's so many good people, so many moms, so many parents that really stepped up to the plate on this. So many young athletes, right? Like the ones we've had, like Paula Scanlon, Riley Gaines, these young women that had to change in front of this Leah Thomas, and they've spoken their mind, they've spoken their piece, and they've become activists, and good for them. Because but for them picking up that mantra, taking on that mantle and fighting this fight, was I going to fight it? Was I going to fight the fight in the public square? Maybe on the radio, maybe on TV, maybe in doing what I do professionally. But I don't change with trannies, right? I have no experience with that. They went through that. That is their fight to fight. So God bless them for fighting it. But anyway, the point I'm making here is the Democrats they've gone a step too far. Each and every time it's one step further. And this Epstein email hoax, it's the latest in trying to, I guess to the effect that they want to get me or anybody else talking about it. It's working, but it's not working like they thought, right? They thought everybody would go, oh my gosh, they got him this time. They finally got Trump. I got news for you. You don't have to agree with me, but things that people don't want you to know, you're not going to know. And oftentimes, it's impossible to keep a lot of these secrets, right? Here's an example. The identity of Deep Throat. It was a secret for quite a while until it wasn't. So many things remain secret, not for very long, because ultimately people can't help but talk, and they tell you what's going on. So I think when you hear people say, if the Democrats had anything on Trump, they would have used it already. That is 100% true. It's 1,000% true. Nobody would have held on to anything. Do you remember Rachel Maddow? I don't know how many years ago this was, but 5 or 6 years ago. She said, oh, we got Trump. We got his taxes. Oh, boy. And they released Trump's taxes. And what did it show? Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. And he fought tooth and nail to protect his privacy. He went to court. The courts protected him. They said, nope, you can't get his taxes. You can't do this. And then the first fight, right? In the second fight, they threw him under the bus. But in this first fight, they and Rachel Maddow was able to get a copy or whatever, and it showed that he, in fact, did pay his taxes, right? He paid a lot of millions in personal taxes, despite whatever the business paid. It wasn't this smoking gun that she thought it was going to be. It wasn't the bombshell. It didn't destroy him because it wasn't bad. This is how they tend to operate. And this Epstein email hoax, same exact thing. All sizzle, no steak. And I think we know this by now because this is what they do. They don't have anything on Trump. That's why they make it up as they go along. That's why they put him in jail or tried to put him in jail for as long as they did. So I'm moving on from this. I think I've said enough. I think you've seen enough. I probably won't talk about Epstein again until you hear me in a best of during Christmas because I'm Epsteined out. Now, what I can talk about is that stuff that I feel we don't talk about enough. How the result of Biden and Mayorkas and Kamala Harris's, their open border, and what it really meant. It did not mean an endless amount of immigrants coming in for free or cheap labor. It meant that we were smuggling children into this country, boys to go work in factories in the overnight shift when nobody's looking, little girls to work as sex slaves. That's real. That happened, and it's still happening. And kudos to Secretary Kristi Noem and everybody, Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, everybody in federal law enforcement that is working with local law enforcement across the country with a series of these operations to get these sexual predators behind bars. Kudos to them. I just saw today 80 kids rescued as a result of this recent operation. That's fantastic. Praise God is what I say to that. And I want to get into that straight ahead with our guest. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdés.
Well, thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdés.
We know that it's the children that is our job to protect. These men and women put their lives on the line every single day to protect the children of their communities and protect the American people and put them first.
News Nation's Allie Bradley is live with more. So, Allie, a major operation involving more than one agency here.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Nicole. And as you mentioned, it was titled Operation Criminal Return, but DHS Secretary Kristi Noem said it would be more fitting to call it Operation Dirtbag. This was a sweeping enforcement operation involving several agencies, including state, local, and federal in Florida. And it lasted for about 10 days, where at least 230 illegal immigrants were arrested in this operation, according to DHS. So we want to give you a breakdown. You're looking at some of who they call the worst of the worst, but we want to give you a breakdown of these arrests. So 54 of them were sexual predators, 164 offenders of sexual crimes, 2 convicted murderers, 1 drug trafficker, and 8 other felonies. The agency saying the charges tied to those arrested include attempted murder, drug offenses, sexual assault, and child molestation. One of those arrested has been convicted of sex crimes against children and was arrested more than 10 times, according to DHS. Another arrested 19 times. Here's the director for Florida law enforcement talking about the operation.
In terms of this operation,
all right, I guess we don't have the director, but you get the point. And the point here is that this is a huge victory for the United States, right? Massive undertaking. I sat right here on this microphone telling everybody, listen, it's going to be very difficult to deport a lot of people. And listen, I've been right. It's been difficult, but not impossible. What the United States federal government is doing has been a no small task and a tremendous victory, in my opinion. And we still haven't seen too much of it in New York. And that's specifically where I was saying it's going to be difficult, because you don't have much local law enforcement there to help you out. But either way, big deal. You're talking about tons of kids that got rescued as a result of this operation. These people had sex offenses under their belt, many of them against children. And I want to get to the bottom of this with our guest. He is a decades-long, 3 decades-long veteran of the United States Border Patrol. Prior to retiring, he was Division Chief for Law Enforcement Operations in the Del Rio sector. And I'm happy to have him on loan from Breitbart News, where he's the Texas border reporter now. Chief Randy Clark, welcome back, sir.
Hey, thanks for having me, Rich. Good to be with you.
Thank you, sir. And I talked about this briefly yesterday, and I said, you know what, I want to get the scoop because I know guys like you are OGs in this game. You guys, when this stuff goes down, I know you all talk to each other. Plus, you're a reporter, so you have the scoop on a lot of this. Talk to me about, what the media is leaving out, because I feel like this was a very, very significant bust, and it's not the only one in recent months.
No, it's not, and none of the negative press that you see, none of the statements that are coming, particularly out of the Democrat Party, really make any sense to the layperson, right? We're hearing horrible things about operations that are resulting in a dropping of crimes overall, right? Not just immigration-related crimes, but homicides and shootings and robberies, carjackings. In Chicago in particular, we know they're down by double-digit percentages, all of those categories, which you would think that's a good thing, right? Mm-hmm. And absolutely not. People are telling you this is bad. We're going to protect all the children. Well, there were 500,000 unaccompanied children pushed across the border and released into the United States over the last 4 years. And we know they found some of them working some of these marijuana farms. We know they found them in some manufacturing plants, being worked as juveniles. So what else has happened to these kids? Because many are missing. We know that for a fact. So all of this negative press you hear makes absolutely no sense. And when you look at the numbers just of that operation in Florida recently, when you have 230 offenders and 150 are sex offenders, that's alarming, right? That's alarming because they have about a 30% lifetime reoffending rate. So they're a danger to community. I don't care if it's a U.S.-based sex offender or if it's one that comes from another country. If it's your family member that's victimized, your child, it doesn't matter, right? But we don't need to add to the roster of those that we have domestically by taking in the world's sex offenders. So there's nothing bad that I can see to criticize about this operation. And when they're conducted in places like Florida, you see great cooperation out of local authorities under 287G. They're not just law enforcement trying to be immigration officers. They're trained, and they work hand in hand. So wonderful programs. They're welcomed in some places, and nobody benefits except the community.
Outstanding. Listen, I couldn't have been happier to see what I saw. I think oftentimes we being guys like me in media, we take our foot off the gas of what's happening with all these kids that are missing, and it was great to see a victory like this yesterday. Chief, stick with us. Folks, we're on with Chief Randy Clark, retired from the Border Patrol. He's the Breitbart News border reporter, and we're going to continue with him straight ahead to talk about something that happened just at the end of last month, Operation Twin Shield, another big victory. Don't go anywhere. It's Chief Randy Clark coming back with me, Rich Valdés.
Voted best head of hair in live late night radio 6 years in a row. It's Rich Valdés.
Officers from our Fraud Detection and National Security Directorate, working in teams, have conducted over 1,000 site visits across the Minneapolis-St. Paul area as part of this operation. What they found should shock all of America. Focusing on a list of over 1,000 target cases involving more than 900 individuals, our officers encountered blatant marriage fraud, visa overstays, people claiming to work at businesses that can't be found, forged documents, abuse of the H-1B visa system, abuse of the F-1 visas, and many other discrepancies. Over the course of the operation, our officers found indication of fraud, non-compliance, or public safety and national security concerns in nearly a little less than 50% of the cases interviewed. We found troubling patterns with the Uniting for Ukraine program that should have raised serious concerns under other administrations, such as an individual filing to sponsor more than 100 aliens and organizations sponsoring hundreds. We are continuing to investigate these cases.
That is the press conference for Operation Twin Shield. This happened in the Twin Cities. And again, this happened about 6 weeks ago. I'm highlighting it because the big takeaway here wasn't the arrests. It was the vast amount of investigative prowess that went into this to uncover all of these fraudulent issues, fake marriages, fake death certificates, forged documents, and the abuse of F1 and H-1B visas as well as overstays. And not to mention these other programs like the Ukrainian program and whatnot. And this is, again, this happened 6 weeks ago. Yesterday, you see 230 people arrested, many of them sex predators. So I want to talk about this and really get a larger look at what's happening across the country with our guest, former Border Chief Randy Clark. He's with Breitbart News now, and he's with us live. Chief, this clip that we just heard from Director Edlow from USCIS, I thought was really telling because these are things that you hear about and you know exist, but we rarely hear about them in a press conference like that where it's kind of put on display front and center saying, hey, look, this is a problem.
Well, you know, and we're hearing about it right now because for the last 4 years, the policies for USCIS and for Immigration and Customs Enforcement and the Border Patrol, they were all designed to create a mechanism to open our borders up, right? So there was no will to root out fraud. That's one of the last things that gets looked at to the extent that you see immigration enforcement, right? Worksite enforcement and fraud, they are the ones that kind of take second fiddle to the border stuff going on and the interior enforcement removal for criminal aliens. So it's good to see that this administration can walk and chew gum at the same time. It's an incredible undertaking when you consider 1,000 cases just in Minneapolis and St. Paul. But what do you think is happening in New York, in L.A., in Dallas, in Houston, places where we know we have a high population of people in an illegal status? You're also going to see fraud happening there. And that fraud appears in a number of ways, right? You can have single scheme marriage fraud where you have two people that have agreed to, well, I'll lie and say, you know, we really love each other and you'll get your green card and then you go about your way and have a happy life. We'll just get divorced or what have you. Then you have those where it's fraud all the way around, and you may have somebody taking advantage of a U.S. citizen and fooling them, right? You mail order stuff. You could have stuff like that going on. And then you're going to have the paid fraud where you have folks that are designing these rings that can be used to like have chain migration come in. So one marriage, you might see kids from other families getting, you know, listed on documents trying to get them into the United States. The sky's the limit with this stuff, but it's very time consuming, even though the onus and the burden of proof is on two people who are making their application as a valid marriage. The onus is on them, but you need the folks on the ground to get in there, like in this case, and do that kind of work. And it's very, very time consuming, but it's hopeful. You know, I'm with you. It offers great hope to me.
Yeah, listen, I agree with that. And talk to me about, you know, being that you're in the media now, I know that there's a lot of sympathy coming from media agencies peddling sob stories. I know you've written about this, about a particular deported meth trafficker, but even larger than that, there are seemingly very sympathetic people, particularly within media, that are, you know, kind of like, oh, but you shouldn't do that. And I guess I'm trying to say that I feel like there's a narrative right now where people are saying they're not just going after criminals, they're going after everybody. They're taking teachers out of daycares. And, you know, these things are factually inaccurate, but people are buying it.
I think you have some buying it, and I think the folks that you see pushing the narratives, including some of those in the media, are folks that have an ulterior motive, right? I think this entire, protection of illegal aliens is basically the last breath of the Democrat Party to hold on to one demographic that they hope not to lose, that they're going to need just for the, apportionment of congressional seats after the next census. I truly believe that, because if you're going to have sympathy, well, what about sympathy for American workers, whether it be in the inner cities, whether it be, in the Appalachian, in the western part, Native American Indian country? What about those places? Why don't we say, hey, let's fight poverty and let's, if we're going to shed a tear, let's shed some tears over what these folks are experiencing. And we're not seeing that. And so they'll push these folks to try and release somebody that's being detained, not knowing if that person is a pedophile or sex offender or convicted murderer or a gang member. I mean, if you and I needed the attention of our senator, he or she's not coming to us, and we know that. But they will fly all the way to El Salvador for an illegal alien. So what does that tell you? That was a tell right there. And so we're seeing Congress get involved in these stories like the alleged U.S. firefighter. Congress went all in on that. We can't be getting these folks that are firefighters. Well, not firefighters, criminal illegal aliens that are aggravated felons that, have mandatory detention and entered the United States in a felony manner twice after being deported. That's a bit of a stretch, and even though the facts get out there, you still see the sympathies and the heartstrings getting pulled, because we cannot afford to lose that demographic if we're ever going to maintain power. That's just, I feel that way 100%.
And amigos, I just want to remind you, we're on with Chief Randy Clark, and when he talks about firefighters, he's talking about Jose Bertin Cruz Estrada. He's a criminal illegal alien from Mexico that has charges for the delivery and selling of methamphetamine. And he's been deported, and people are upset, saying they feel betrayed. How could you do this to a firefighter? In particular, the Guardian newspaper putting this out there. So you've got the BBC forced to fire a couple of people, or forced to resign a couple of their people, now today apologizing. And the Guardian, and it seems that these European media establishments are trying to dictate American immigration policy. And when you look at what's happening in the UK, they've got an immigration mess on their hands, Chief.
They absolutely do. And I think they just really don't care about it, right? They're good with it. They're going to double down on it, and it doesn't matter what they're seeing happen to their crime rates over there. They're not worried about it right now. Maybe someday they'll have a change of opinion. The good news is, I think we're making some headway. You see the resignations at the top of the BBC, because they realize, hey, we got caught, and I think we're seeing liberal media in the United States. The same thing is happening to them. We're seeing a change in CBS. Let's see if it goes to other places. CNN is now at least has a few people that are pushing conservative narratives. At the same time, they're putting the liberal narratives out there. So that's promising, maybe.
Chief Randy Clark, you've got some amazing articles on Breitbart.com. Let everybody know how they access these articles and how they follow you on social media.
So they can find the stories on Breitbart.com. They can go to the World page, our Cartel Chronicles, or they can follow me at Randy Clark BBTX on X.
Outstanding. Chief, I want to thank you for being with us. You are a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot. Godspeed to you, sir.
Thank you for having me. Good evening.
You bet. And amigos, the rest of your calls, questions, comments, and opinions are coming up right now. Plus, I got a few more things up my sleeve. Keep it locked right here. I'm Rich Valdés.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdés. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdés with an S.
Rich, I'm honored, man, to be able to have a voice on your platform. There's probably 140,000 federal inmates that listen to you at night.
America at Night with Rich Valdés.
We're just hearing that the BBC has apologized to Donald Trump over the editing of a speech which appeared on Panorama in 2024, adding it was an error of judgment and the programme will not be broadcast again in this form on any BBC platform. So that's the BBC apologising directly to the President of the United States over the editing of a speech that appeared on Panorama in 2024. But Emma, by the sounds of it, there might be another apology to make.
Yeah, so that was the one that's caused such a furore over the last week or so that resulted on Sunday night in the Director General of the BBC, the big boss, Tim Davie, resigning. Also, the Chief Executive of BBC News, Deborah Turness, both of those leaving their roles. Then the BBC Chair apologising for what he called an error of judgment. So this really has been the focus of enormous attention. Now we're talking about this Newsnight programme. And what's really interesting about it, according to the Telegraph, who've broken this story, a live guest straight after that speech was played out on Newsnight pointed out that it had been cut incorrectly, changing the meaning. And according to the Telegraph, nothing was done on air to say apologise or to address that.
Yeah, to alert people that it had happened.
Yeah, and then the next morning in an editorial meeting, it said that it was discussed there, concerns were raised, nothing was done then. There has been a response from the BBC, a BBC spokesperson saying the BBC holds itself to the highest editorial standards. This matter has been brought to our attention and we are now looking into this.
The BBC forced to apologize to El Trumpito for lying about him. Now, will they pay any damages? Are they going to get sued like he's sued the others? I hope so, because maybe we could add, I don't know, something else to the White House with the money he gets from that lawsuit. We'll see how this goes down. I want to get to some of your calls. We've been talking about China. We've been talking about the poison that's coming across our borders and so much more. Let's go to the phones, 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdés. Let's go to Paul, calling us from Globe, Arizona, KRVN. Paul, go right ahead, sir.
Well, I want to congratulate you on having that man on China talk about it, because
Gordon Chang.
I have been, in my community, small town, advocating for a civil defense program, even the rudiments of it, to inventory what facilities, what tunnels, where we have food, water, medicine. We live in a dangerous world, not just from China, but from many other aspects. And if you look at countries like Switzerland, Russia, etc., they have highly developed civil defense programs. Apparently, they really do care about their people surviving. But in America, we live in la-la land. As long as we're fed bread and circuses, there's no sense of urgency. How many Americans know where they will go within 15 minutes notice of a major attack? Not very many, but the rich and the famous, the government officials, the generals, they know. They have vast underground facilities, Cheyenne Mountain, and many others that they have been developing from a black budget for many years. They know where they're going to go on 15 minutes notice. But what about the 300 million of us who sit here and we're the heart and soul of the country, but yet there is no urgency to develop a civil defense program at all, which is fundamental to surviving in this modern world. Yeah. I mean, in Russia, for example, the subway is very deep and is vast and can be used. We have areas around our community, tunnels and so forth, that could be inventoried and could be stockpiled. I mean, I could go into great detail.
Right.
But
I get you, and I think I get the flavor of what you're cooking over here. And Paul, two things I have to say, immediate reactions. Number one, General Blaine Holt, who's a colleague of Gordon Chang's, he has an organization called Restore-Liberty. I think it's .org. It might be .com, but check out Restore Liberty with Blaine Holt, General Blaine Holt. that organization does training on helping people create these civil defense groups that you're talking about, so that they know how to keep their water supply okay and where to go if their water supply is tainted. How far to go? Where do you go if there's what type of attack? Do you go to the mountains because you need to be above sea level, et cetera, et cetera? So very good point that you made, and Blaine Holt does that through Restore Liberty. Second point was, I don't know if you've been told this before. You're not a dead ringer, but you sound like Paul Harvey, the radio legend. Can you say, and now you know the rest of the story?
And now you know the rest of the story.
I could see you've been told this before, and because you do it well. Paul, what a treat to talk to you. I appreciate it, brother. Godspeed to you, and check out restoreliberty.com. Amigos, I'm coming right back with the rest of your calls. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdés.
Welcome back. 833-4825-337. 833-4-Valdés. We continue. Let's go to Larry, Myrtle Beach, Florida. There's a Myrtle Beach, Florida. Is that right?
No, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina.
That's what I thought. Yeah, I guess they wrote it wrong here on my screen. Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, WRNN. Larry, what's on your mind, brother?
Some of this property that's being sold to the Chinese nationalists, with the wrong intent, went through the banks. Some of that property was held through banks, liens, you know what I mean? The mortgages.
Yeah, well, I'm guessing that these guys have enough money to buy it.
We should send a message and just buy back anything like on military, on outside of military property installations. We should buy it back, environmental domain. Send a message.
Yeah, well, listen, I'm with you. As long as, somebody's willing to buy it. I know I don't have the money to buy it. And I hear you're saying eminent domain. That would mean the government's buying it. And I don't want the government to spend money. But we do have to figure out a way to, like Gordon Chang said, asset forfeiture might be a good way to do it, or force them to sell. And, hey, I'm down for that, because you know what? Like he said, we're not even allowed to own land in their country. Let us continue. Where do I want to go? Jim, Daytona Beach. Is Daytona Beach in Florida? WNDB. Go right ahead.
Hey, Rich, how you doing?
Wonderful.
I'm a big fan of Gordon Chang's, and I'm definitely a fan of yours. And you're a patriot, and I appreciate you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. And I'm a retired Navy man. My whole family's Navy. The thing that bothered me, why I wanted to touch base with you, was with our pharmaceuticals and our vitamins being, processed in China. I mean, how can we trust that? Does anybody check that coming in?
Oh, yeah, you're right. Jim, first, thanks for your service, by the way. You're a patriot. And secondly, President Trump has been beating on that drum since COVID, saying, look, we have to make our pharmaceuticals in the U.S. We have to reshore them. And it wasn't that long ago where so much of our pharmaceuticals were made in Puerto Rico. Pfizer was running the game in Puerto Rico, and Puerto Rico's a heck of a lot closer, and it's the United States than, China and these other places. So you're right on. We need to get towards that. Keep it America first and keep it safe. Jim, thanks for the call. Shout out to WNDB, Florida. And folks, we got a few people on hold: California, Florida, New York, and more. Don't go anywhere. It's Rich Valdés. I'm coming right back.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdés, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, Here is your host, Rich Valdés.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdés, Valdés with an S, at Rich Valdés on all of the social media. Your liberty-loving Latino amigo, happy to be here with you this Thursday night. It is 7 minutes past the top of the hour, and we're live this Thursday night, so if you want to give me a call, feel free, 833-482-5337, 833-4Valdés. And the Democrats don't know what to do with themselves. They're upset with Chuck Schumer. Some are happy that the shutdown's over. Others are very, very upset. And AOC, all out crazy, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Well, sir, well, ma'am, she is out there recruiting MAGA. Listen to this.
I want to say this right now. I fully welcome Trump voters into our coalition. And I know that sounds crazy to some people, but just hear me out. I cannot tell you, it just happened to me like 2 weeks ago. I can't tell you how many times someone has pulled me aside and said either I was once a big Trump voter and a Trump supporter, and I watched Fox News every day, but then I started to kind of expand my world and where I got information, and now I've learned, and now I've changed, and I'm with you, and I learn from you. Or people who meet me who are really big Republicans now, and they are shocked when they meet me because they're like, you are nothing like I was told you are. And you start to see the cogs turning, that maybe everything that they had been told from this one channel or this one ecosystem isn't the whole truth. And it is enough to spark a curiosity that makes people want to go down a longer journey of learning.
That again is AOC, all out crazy, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, my least favorite congresswoman from the Bronx and Queens, explaining why she is recruiting MAGA. Now, I'm going to explain to you, if you're thinking I'm going to say, she's nuts, she's crazy, there's no way MAGA people are joining her club, I'm going to say, well, maybe there's some truth to that. But the reality is the MAGA movement, by and large, has been a populist movement, right? We the people versus the deep state, the political elite, the uniparty, permanent Washington, all sorts of different names. And her mission is the proletariat versus the bourgeoisie. Populism can morph into progressive politics very quickly, right? This is why I talk about those things, but my mission is not to defeat the deep state. And I always try to harp on focusing on being an informed patriot, focusing on knowing our stuff, focusing on our Constitution, focusing on the liberty that we have, focusing on a biblical worldview. Why? Because those things are things you can stand on and you can be for. And it's not a struggle against. There are struggles, of course. You're going to struggle against the culture and against all the things I mentioned. But this anti-establishment approach, and it's important, right? The Tea Party was very much anti-establishment. But it stood for something. And listen, AOC stands for something too. Don't think that she's not standing on anything. She stands on decades and decades of a movement created by Karl Marx. And she stands on it proudly. So the Bernie bro and the MAGA people have little in common, but there are areas where I think there's a Venn diagram, if you will, a correlation coefficient. And the people that got on board for certain reasons that may have not liked the way the political wind was blowing, and I think that's a very small number, might jump ship. But by and large, I think what she's saying is relatively thin, right? I think the people, if she's heard that story that she told once or thrice, okay. But to think that she's constantly hearing people saying, I used to be a big Trump voter, but now I can't wait to vote with you. Are you out of your mind? Are you out of your mind? I mean, she's talking about we've got to give health care is a right. That's what her communist sympathizing grandfather, Bernie Sanders, he says health care is a right. Look at Denmark. Denmark. Right? He loves Denmark. And she loves him. Trump's not saying that. In fact, Trump's saying quite a different story. He's talking about the free market, right? Because he stands for something. I want you to listen to President Trump in the Oval Office. And let me just track down the number here because it's important. Oh, man, I lost my place here. Well, hopefully I'll find it. It's a clip of Trump saying that Americans should buy their own health insurance. Here it is, number 4. Listen to this.
But it all includes fixing the healthcare system that Democrats broke with the disaster known as Obamacare. Obamacare was a disaster from day one. It's done nothing but go up. And if you remember President Barack Hussein Obama, when he came up with this crazy idea, he said everything's going to be great. Rates are going to go down. Payments are going to go down. Everything's going to go down. It went the exact opposite, with the biggest increase of healthcare in any country. It's a disaster. And I'm calling today for insurance companies not to be paid, but for the money, this massive amount of money, to be paid directly to the people of our country so that they can buy their own health care, which will be far better and far less expensive than the disaster known as Obamacare. And I've had, I think, great support. I've even had Democrat support. So we want the money that would be going to the insurance company, which is hundreds of billions of dollars. You know, their stock prices have gone up by 1,000% in many cases, 1,000% over a short period of time, because our country stupidly pays them so much money with this Obamacare scandal. So I want the money to go directly to you, the people. And you'll go out and you'll buy your own health insurance and you'll negotiate different plans and you'll get much better insurance and you will be an entrepreneur for yourself. So I'm always willing to work with anyone, including the other party. We'll work on something having to do with health care. We can do a lot better. We can do great.
How about that? What part of what he said is false? Not a single thing. That is 100% true. If you give people the money to get their own health insurance, they are going to get the best health insurance that they can with their money. That's it. People are going to do the right thing. It's always easier to spend somebody else's money. And guess what happens when people are controlling the market, controlling their capital, in charge of themselves, owning their own agency? You know what the right is? Their right is to liberty. Liberty is a right, right? Not healthcare. Healthcare is a right, right? No, it's not healthcare is a right. It's liberty is your right. And then you tell the health insurance companies, yep, I'm buying it. Nope, not buying it. Nope, I don't need the government telling me I have to buy this from you. Nope, I don't have to submit my tax paperwork to say that I have insurance so that you can give me X, Y, and Z. Screw you, taxes. Imagine that. Imagine that type of liberty. I think we're headed in that direction. I do. And I think we're closer than we were the last time I did my taxes. So my point in all this is you might find a few people that say, hey, look, I got on the Trump train because I'm a populist and it was us versus them, but I don't see any changes, so now I'm going the other way. These are unprincipled people. These are people that are not moored in reality. These are people that don't know what they're standing on. You know, the old Lord Acton phrase, I use it on my podcast all the time. If you stand for nothing, you'll fall for anything. That's true. And in this case, it's not healthcare as a right. It's not AOC and her plan to use socialism to fix every last societal ill. It doesn't work that way. At the end of the day, I think we really do boil down to two different types of people. And it doesn't mean we can't coexist. It just means we're different, right? I don't see AOC ever saying, look, I drop to my knees and pray. When I can't figure things out, I give it to the Lord. You know, thank God for God. Praise Jesus. I don't hear those things. Why? Because she's not guided by a higher power. She's not guided in submission to God. And if she is, she doesn't share it with me. But what she does share with me is how she believes that Bernie Sanders is the ticket. How she believes that socialism is the way to go, that we can fix the environment, we can fix the economy, we can fix every last problem. She said that when people are looting Walmart and taking flat screen televisions outside, that this is because they're hungry and they're trying to put food on their table, that they're stealing loaves of bread. Ma'am, the 75-inch TV is not a loaf of bread. My point is there are drastically different ideas here. So good luck to the MAGA folks that want to join AOC's movement. If you like the free, go ahead and jump on board. But guess what? She's always going to run out of somebody else's money. You're better off sticking with El Trompito, who says you could spend your own money and get the things you got to get. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdés.
By the way, your ratings are up. Congratulations. I had somebody. It's always nice to check. I like to see, even if they're friends, I like to see how are they doing. Are people listening, right?
That's
but
right.
You're doing great.
America at Night with Rich Valdés.
There will be no changes in policy for charter schools or transgender athletes at Douglas County schools. The board met for 7 hours Tuesday evening debating a resolution that would prevent transgender students from competing in line with their gender identities. But they never actually voted on that measure. A vote to extend charter school contracts from 5 to 10 years failed. This comes just 2 weeks before a new school board takes over with a more progressive slate of candidates.
That's a report out of CBS in Colorado. And everybody's pushing towards inclusivity, accepting the transgender movement, accepting this, accepting that. And I want to have a conversation from a different perspective, from the, the perspective of exclusivity, excluding, drawing boundaries without apologies. That's what Alvin Lui talks about. He's president of Courage is a Habit, and he writes a column at The Blaze, and he's with us right now. Alvin, welcome.
Hey, thank you for having me. So happy to be here.
Thank you. Likewise. So let's get into this, because I think most of the time when you talk to people that are promoting a movement and the work that they're doing, they try to find the positive spin on it. You've found that taking the opposite, saying, no, forget about inclusion. Let's talk about exclusion. I think it's an interesting angle. Talk to us about it.
So I want your audience that's listening, I want you to think about, if you have 4 kids, think about her home from the hospital. I want to ask this question, especially the mothers. How many people did you let hold your baby? Probably not very many. Some women out there probably thinking, I didn't let my husband hold the baby. And then so as out at a department store and a stranger said, oh, what a beautiful baby. Can you say about that? You're going to say no. As the baby started crawling around, he is excluded from 90% of his own house. Can't go to the garage, the den, can't go in the backyard. He's only isolated to his playpen, and then the little area where he can get, where he's sleeping. And then as they get older, you obviously curate what he watches. As he gets older, you curate who his friends are, not only his friends, but the family of the friends, because you want to make sure that you surround him with people that reflect your family values. The point is, Rich, over and over and over again, at every milestone of parenting, it's always been about exclusion. Then something very magical happens. You bring your beautiful, perfect child. No, there's no such thing as a trans child. Every child's born perfect. You bring your baby that you've given birth to, that you've raised, and you drop them off at a building, and with this title in the front of the building says school. And then something really weird happens. A government employee points a finger at your face and says, what's the matter? Don't you want inclusion? And then now good parents, they trip all over themselves because they're good-hearted people. We all are. Americans are good-hearted people. They trip all over themselves, go, no. Of course I want to be inclusive. I want my child to be inclusive. I want the school to be inclusive. What are you talking about? What do you mean? At every permutation of parenting, it's always been about exclusion. And then you, the parents, decide when to start including things in your child's life based on a host of things. Their maturity not being, notwithstanding. But even if you have more than one child, sometimes something that you believe your 10-year-old is ready for, one child may not, another 10-year-old may not be ready for. That's a decision that you make as a family. There's a lot of different people that you might consult But I'll tell you, a government employee in a government K through 12 is the last people that's going to tell you about inclusion. So no, we 100% at Courage is a Habit remind people that a healthy life is about drawing boundaries. So you reject inclusion and you embrace exclusion.
I love it. Listen, I'm buying what you're selling. I think it's a great point of view. It's catchy and it makes a lot of sense. You know, you're right as you're talking about it. I have two daughters, one 24, one 20, and I'm thinking to myself, yeah, you know, I'm still doing exclusion, right? I'm still saying, hey, listen, when you're 30, you can do this. When you're 25, you can do that.
Right.
So, you know,
As a
it's
father,
kind of like,
you know.
It's the rule of thumb of parenting, exclusion. Now, how did you stumble on this? Was this something you always looked at this way, or was it a personal experience that, you know, knocked it into you and said, man, I got to start talking about exclusion?
Well, in government K through 12, the whole ecosystem is designed to separate the children from the parents, ideologically and physically. And this is pushed by the school counselors, mostly pushed by school counselors because they're the ones that drive the mental health in schools. But in order for parents to co-sign this, they have to do something what we call language contamination. And language contamination very easily is they use your vocabulary but not your dictionary. They use your vocabulary, not your dictionary. And so they have to couch it behind things like empathy and kindness and anti-bullying and all those different things. So inclusion is one of those words that to you and I and to good-hearted people who are operating on good faith means something very different than to these ideologues, these transgender cultists, these critical race theorists, people who really hate America, who believe America is racist, who believe there's such a thing as you can be born in the wrong body. And so they use these words. And so as we're moving through the last few years trying to help parents understand what's in schools and giving them the tools to fight back, I started to realize that everything begins with language contamination and weaponizing your empathy. And so we found that if we can remind parents that your primary job is to exclude things from your child, it actually helps and fixes a lot of the emotional blackmail that parents are facing in schools.
Brilliant stuff. Weaponizing empathy and poisoning the language, abusing the language. It's spot on. Alvin Lui, stick with me. We're coming right back. We're going to learn more about his organization, Courage is a Habit. We're also going to talk about why patriots should wear the hate group smear with pride. I want to learn about that as well. Folks, keep it locked right here. It's Rich Valdés coming right back with our guest, Alvin Lui.
Oh, it's so good to be back with you, and you are absolutely one of my favorites too, brother.
America at Night with Rich Valdés.
I want to also thank the 8 Senate Democrats who finally did the right thing in voting to end this craziness, this madness. But unfortunately, the vast majority of congressional Democrats were happy for millions of Americans to suffer. They really did suffer, too. And the Democrats admitted, they said, well, no, we finally have a point. Even though people have to suffer, we finally have a point. And that didn't work out too well for them. But they really went out and they could appease the fringe benefits of their far-left base. But that didn't work out because now their far-left base is angrier than ever before. We actually elected a mayor of New York City who happens to be a communist. When was that going to happen? Remember, I said all the time during my campaign, we will never be a socialist country. And that's right. We turned out to have a communist in New York City. And if you look at his views, those are the views of a communist, not a socialist. So this is no way to run a country. I hope we can all agree that the government should never be shut down again. End the filibuster, terminate the filibuster. It'll never happen again.
That's President Trump last night, again, celebrating the victory of reopening the government, getting a few Democrats on board. And again, it was the hate inside of Democrats, in particular, the most left wing among them, that drove this, right? Holding people hostage, holding the country hostage to extort them to get their political will done. Yet it's those same Democrats within higher education, Democrats on school boards, Democrats, or I should say the left within the media, that say that it's the right, it's the center right, it's patriots, it's conservatives. They're the real hate mongers. They're the real hate group. And Alvin Lui written about this, saying we need to own the hate. Why patriots should wear the hate group, quote unquote, smear with pride. Alvin Lui, welcome back. Tell us about why we should be proud to be called a hate group.
So the SPLC, the Southern Poverty Law Center, which is probably the top 3 worst organization that ever existed, labeled us a hate group when we were about a little over a year and a half old. And I think, to my knowledge, I could be wrong, that we were the youngest group that they've ever labeled that. And so when hate to me is the same as being called a racist or a bigot or a transphobe, homophobe. They all mean the same thing. It's a way to take advantage of people who are operating in good faith. So if you and I were sitting down and we were in good faith, and you said you said something to me and said, "Hey, Alvin, you said this and this was disrespectful." If you're operating in good faith, I'm going to try my best to either explain that, "Oh no, I didn't mean it that way, Rich," or I'm going to apologize and say, "You know what? You caught me at a bad time. I did snap at you," and that's okay because you're saying that in good faith. But if you're saying that in bad faith, there's nothing I can do to ever rectify my offense to you, because it's not an offense to you. You're trying to get me to bend my boundaries. So hate's the same way. And so what I see from conservatives is when someone accuses them of hate, they go, "It's not hate to tell the truth," or "It's not hateful to protect kids," and not hateful to protect women in sports. But that's the wrong move, because you're acknowledging that what they're saying is in a good faith. You're hateful. You're a bigot. So instead, what we remind people of is you lean into it. They say, "You're hateful, you're hateful." And I go, absolutely we are. There's a lot of things that we hate. We hate sex trafficking. We hate when kids get sterilized and mutilated before they can get a driver's license. We hate that children are being torn from parents because parents don't believe they're born in the wrong body. We hate that white kids are being told that they're oppressors. We hate that black kids are told that their skin color determines their success in America. And then I asked, "You don't hate anything? There's nothing you hate?" Now, what's funny is the people who are talking about, love and inclusion and hate and bigots, they hate the most. They hate anybody that's excellent, right? They hate white people. They hate Christians. They hate America. They hate anything excellent. And so this is why we say lean into it. Whatever they say, go, absolutely. You're a bigot. Absolutely. I'm very bigoted against people who think that the children can be born in the wrong body. And when you do that, you just suck every little bit of ounce of power, that smugness right out of them. They don't know what to do. They don't know what to say. My favorite is I go, "Absolutely, I'm hateful. I hate everything you stand for. I hate," and then I list the things I just said, and I go, "You don't hate anything? Is there anything you want to add?" And they just fall apart. They don't know what to do.
Yeah, after that, they want to fight. That's the next step. That's oftentimes how the left operates. Amigos, we're on with Alvin Lui. His organization is called Courage is a Habit, and they were labeled a hate group by the Southern Poverty Law Center because they've taken this unapologetic stand against transgender ideology in K through 12 schools, as well as taking a stance against transgender trafficking bills, right? Yeah. These are things that we should not allow, and I think you're right. So for people that are listening and they want to learn more, well, first, before we get there, let me ask you, Courage is a Habit. I like the name of the organization because we should make it a habit, right? Courage should be a habitual thing for us, and it's not easy for a lot of people. I would say for all of us at some point or another, we struggle with being courageous. Why did you choose that name?
Well, the majority of the problems we have in this country is because people started to self-silence. And this was by design. You work in a corporation, you got to put, the little black square out, you got to put pronouns in your, in your email signature. You got to take that anti-bias training, even though you don't have a racist bone in your body. And so people started to self-silence. And but they told themselves, "Oh, when it counts, when they come after my kids, or when they really come after my family, I'm going to stand up." The problem with that, habits don't work that way. And so over time, Americans have developed fear as a habit. And so now we go, "Oh, I wish I can speak up, but I can't. I wish I can speak up, but I really don't know what people are going to say." And so we wanted an organization that reminds people that the reverse is true too. Fear is a habit, but so is courage. And so every time you want to say something and you don't say it, it becomes easier for you to shut up the next time, and the next time after that, and the next time after that. But courage also works the same way. If you go, man, I shouldn't say this, I shouldn't post this, but you do it anyway, and yeah, you get the racist and the bigot and all those different things, and then you realize nothing happens. And then the next time you do it, and the next time after that, what happens is after 6 or 7, 8 or 9, 10, 12 times, courage becomes a habit, and you don't think about it anymore, and then you just speak. And that's what we want everyone to do. And so I named the organization Courage is a Habit because I want everyone, even my enemies, when they say the name, it's a subconscious message to everybody that if you make courage a habit, nobody's ever going to shut you up.
Fear not, right? Be strong and courageous. I love it. Now tell everybody how they can learn more about Courage is a Habit. Where do they go?
Well, definitely go to courageisahabit.org. courageisahabit.org and click on school counselors, because we just released a massive national groundbreaking report exposing the school counselors in all 50 states. And so you can download that report when you go to courageisahabit.org, click on school counselors. There's an opt-out form that we encourage every parent to fill out one per child per school year. And then we explain why that's important. And of course, follow us on our socials, which is @CourageHabit. And that's on all our socials.
Outstanding. Well, I want to encourage everybody to go and learn more about your report on the school counselors, because I think you're right. Not only do they weaponize our empathy against us, but they weaponize school counselors against our children. And I, for one, I'm not very familiar with your organization, but for a little bit of research I did for this interview, but I think you're fighting for all the right things. So Godspeed to you, brother. I appreciate what you're doing, and I'm hopeful to get an update from you again in the future.
I'd be happy to be back. Thank you, brother, for having me tonight. It's an honor.
You bet. Amigos, we come back with your thoughts, your calls, your opinions, and reactions straight ahead.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdés. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdés with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back. I'm looking at an article here in my local newspaper, the New York Post. Dog accidentally shoots owner in freak accident as he was cleaning his gun. Listen to this. This Pennsylvania man has blamed his dog for shooting him in the back with a shotgun in a freak accident that landed him in the hospital for surgery. The 53-year-old Shillington man, who wasn't identified, told the cops that he was cleaning his shotgun when he placed it on the bed and sat down, a move that the over-enthusiastic dog took as an invitation to join his master for some cuddles. The next thing he knew, the weapon went off, striking the dog dad in his lower back. He's not sure what stage of the cleaning he was in at the time, so it's unsure if the dog's paw may have gotten caught inside the trigger and the safety was off, or if it was some sort of manufacturer malfunction, said the police corporal Michael Schoon of the Shillington Police. Ain't that crazy? The victim's son called 911. Cops said the man was rushed to the hospital. Investigators found a spent shell casing inside the shotgun, and police used the bizarre incident as an opportunity to remind gun owners about the importance of being cautious at all times when handling firearms. Man, all I could tell you is I was buying this a little bit until I heard that the guy's son called. If the guy's son was there, I'm not buying that the dog shot him. I'm going to go with the son shot him, and they're blaming the dog. But hey, that's my theory. It's an idea. It's not a fact. But man, it doesn't sound very plausible, right? I mean, that's crazy. What a wild story. Anyway, I want to go to the phones. Let's see. Where do we go here? We're going to go to Tony. Tony's in Montreal, calling us from WVMT country. Go right ahead, sir.
Rich, when do you think the Democratic Party is going to come up with an agenda other than obstruction and a checklist that says, okay, we're going to try to impeach him. Okay, that doesn't work. Then we're going to attack him because he did something in Ukraine. That didn't work. Then we're going to attack him.
Listen to this, Tony. I think that the Democrat Party had this inflection point a while back during the Obama years, and they've realized that they didn't have much else to offer the American people. So now they're in the game of survival, and they're in a new game, right? They're kind of in the game of, hey, look, let's make it Europe. Let's bring in lots of immigration, just more people. The more people we can have cheap or free train systems. If you notice, when people call here and talk about Europe, they'll say things like, oh, they got this great train system. You can go to London. You can go straight to France. You can, the one that's in Russia. And I'm not downplaying their subway. I'm just saying these are all socialistic things that cost a bunch of money. When you meet people from these places, they don't pay 30% in tax, right? Most of them are at close to 50%. And that is, in my opinion, it's sort of theft, if you will. Doesn't mean we're not going to get there. I'm pretty sure we will eventually go in that direction. But the bottom line is, I think Democrats ran out of things to offer America, and so did the Republicans. And came Mr. El Trompito Donaldus Magnus. And when he entered the arena, he said, look, I'm going to bring Republicans something new that they can offer. And he offered this populist vision of MAGA. And it satisfies the conservatives. It satisfies the populists. It satisfies a lot of people in the Big Tent. And that's why it's a winner. Democrats aren't satisfying everybody, so they're using threat, intimidation, and coercion to push the Chuck Schumers that were left-leaning further to the left in order to achieve their agenda. And ultimately, I think this is we're looking at their demise or their rebirth as truly a communist sympathizing party, Tony.
Yep, I think so. It's amazing that they can't come up with an ingenious idea to combat or confront or to debate Trump. Why don't you debate Trump on his MAGA plan? Why don't you come up with your own plan? Like, rather than say everything that Trump does is wrong,
it's bad.
You give us an option. But you know what? When Trump says, I'm going to defend Christians in the world, even the Pope did not defend the Christians in the world. And what are the Democrats going to say? He's a devil because he's protecting the Christians?
No, they're going to say he's a fascist. He's going to try and take over the world. He's trying to be king of the world. Listen, they will never give him a fair chance. And that's why I really kind of stopped listening to those people and their criticisms, because it's overboard. Tony, I got to take a pause in a moment, and I got to squeeze one more in. Thank you for the call, brother. Shout out to WVMT and our buddy Tony in Montreal. Let's go to California, KNWZ. Derek, Yucca Valley, California. Go right ahead.
I want to say China is in a total economic freefall, and that is probably going to make them more dangerous politically, because I think their leadership's starting to see that their economy is coming to its end. They've made a lot of bad.
I think you're right in that they've had some economic problems, and they continue to have them every time they mess with Trump and he puts more tariffs on them and it slows things down. Those things slow us down too, but not as badly as they do. Right before Liberation Day or right after Liberation Day, they had so many factories that were halted from producing their goods because we are their biggest customer. And they need to kind of keep that in mind. I think they just don't care. I think they look at us, these stupid Americans. They love plastic. They love cheap stuff. They love fake stuff. And as long as we have our addiction to cheap, fake plastic stuff, we'll continue to buy their goods. And which is why I try my best to train myself to no longer want or like these things. And it's not easy, right? There's a lot of things I do like. And the more you look, the more you find a lot of this stuff comes from China. But you're right. They're in a tough economic spot. We've got to figure out how to put ourselves in a better economic spot while keeping them up against the ropes. That's my opinion. Derek in Yucca Valley, California, KNWZ. Thank you for the call. Folks, we're coming right back. We're going to Evergreen, Montana, KOFI. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdés.
All right, here we go. Thursday night, we're live and national. Rich Valdés with you for a little bit longer. Let's go to Evergreen, Montana, KOFI. Frank, go right ahead, sir.
Hi. I want to say tonight, we have to remember, we've been asleep at the wheel since the year 2000. It's ever since the Gore election with George Bush Jr., we've been asleep at the wheel. Since 2000, all of the electrical harnesses on all vehicles manufacturers in the world is made with soy-based insulation, and the rodents love to chew into these, and it causes shorts. And there's class action lawsuits against the manufacturers. This includes Tesla as well, and farmers too in their combines. They've got the same problems, but geez, it's the rats are taking over. Maybe it's just after the Planet of the Apes, we're going back to the rat race, and you're just going to start eating cars, I guess.
That's funny. It's funny, Frank. I've heard of this, and I did not know until right now that you taught me that, that was the case. I've heard of rats, cats, squirrels, and other animals that, look for warm places when you park your car, that, they'll just bury themselves in there and start, chewing through wire harnesses. I've heard of it plenty of times, and I've seen videos on it and everything. And I had no idea. I never could figure out why. It makes sense. I don't know why I didn't think of it before, but yeah, it's something that they want to eat. Isn't that crazy? The soy based insulation, spray foam. That's crazy. Now, Frank, what do you think the solution is to this? Just use regular plastic?
Free trade with the world and start making our own wiring harnesses instead of having it the cheapest bidder in the world make it. No more soybeans to China.
Right.
Whatever.
Yeah.
They don't need.
Well, I don't think they have enough soybeans, right? I think that's why they buy a lot of the soybeans from us.
You know what? It's terrible. Anyway.
Yeah, well, it's terrible that people are getting their wire harnesses eaten. Thanks, brother. I appreciate it. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Did you want to say something, Frank?
Idea.
Say again?
Oh, yeah. I just wanted to say there's a good place for fracking for oil, and that's under Pennsylvania. I really think that
and they do a lot of it. They've been
close to Montreal and Toronto.
Hydrofracking for shale in Pennsylvania for an extended period. At least I learned about that in 2014. And I know that they're still doing it now. It's even bigger now than it was before. And I think we need more. We need more fracking. A few weeks ago, I was part of a group of people that had lunch with the governor of Puerto Rico. And she said that she's making a huge investment to repair the electrical grid in Puerto Rico, and also another investment into liquid natural gas, which is what you get when you do hydrofracking into the shale rock. So I think that's the way to go. Amigos, thank you for the calls. I appreciate it. Hasta la próxima. Take care. Good night. And God bless you, America. I'm Rich Valdés.